Kevin, I'm checking you are with the design team, correct, for Winslow-Crane?
He is, Nancy.
Thank you. Okay, so why is he in both places? Eric,
Yeah.
what about Troy Mackey?
I don't know who that is.
Okay. Eric, what about Alex is one, correct?
Yes.
What I
Yeah,
thought. Alex
sorry, I
was.
didn't see his name on the list.
That's okay.
You have Brett, right? He's also.
Yep, I'm here. Thanks, Wade.
Yep.
Evening, everyone.
Hello.
Nancy, I know we have at least one person that's going to be from the public. Do we have a few more today, or just the one?
That we had the one person. No, there are people in waiting to speak. I'm just trying to get all the commissioners and the applicants team in.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, Michelle, just so you know, I'm still bringing people in to the meeting, like commissioners and the.
That's fine. We'll wait until you get everything all straightened out. That's no
Yeah,
problem.
and then I want to make sure I have everybody that's with the team as well.
Right. No problem.
So Eric or Wade, oh, there's Brad. So Eric, do we have all of the applicants' team in? I have a Graham Coddington. Is he with the team, and a Blake Waters?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so give me a second. I want to get the public and get their names so I know who if they want to speak or if they're just attending.
Nancy, this is Brett. Graham Coddington is part of the applicant team.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Oh, so I'm seeing a phone call ending in 7445. Do you wish to speak for the public hearing, or are you just wishing to attend and listen and watch?
That's fine. Graham Coddington, drop that.
Ms. Brown, are you here to speak for the public hearing?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I will call on you when we get there, or the chair will.
Thank you.
And I'm showing someone ending in 8583. Are you here to speak for the public hearing? Okay. Blake
No,
Waters.
just listen in.
Okay, so 8583 is to listen.
Thank you. Yes.
Blake Waters. Okay,
Blake?
are you part of the applicant team?
I am not. Nope.
Okay, so do you wish to speak for the public hearing, or do you just wish to listen and observe?
I think just listen and observe. Thank you.
Okay, so we won't call on you. Okay. And Sasha?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. So do you wish to speak during the public hearing, or do you just wish to listen and observe?
We're just gonna listen and observe.
Okay, thank you. If you change your mind, just raise your hand.
Okay.
And I have a JR.
Yes, I'm
Do
with
you
the
wish-
team.
You're with the team. Oh, I need to move you up then. Thank you. Ms. Kirkman's here. I know what she's, Ms. Trujillo.
Yes, hi, I'm just here to listen and observe.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
I'm just here to listen and have a couple questions.
Okay, so you'll need to be sworn in to ask questions then. Okay, the chair will call on you. Mr. Willis?
I'm part of the team,
Oh,
but I
okay.
probably won't need to speak tonight.
We'll just bring you in anyway.
Thank you.
We have a Taylor. And a Troy Mackey. Okay, Chair, I think we are good to start. Because I couldn't
right.
hear those other two. So, and just so, Michelle, so you know, we also have someone at the Civic Center in case someone shows up in person. So at that time, we'll start there to see if there's anyone there. Does that make sense?
I think it makes sense, yes.
Okay, so if I could please have all the applicant team and staff and commissioners all on video, and everyone else please have their video off and be muted, please, until we call on you.
Oh,
Okay, are we set?
We are.
All right. Thank you all for attending the Tuesday, December 8th 2020 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This is the call to order. Nancy, would you please call the roll?
I will. Ms. Townley, is Kate in the meeting? I thought I brought her in.
Here, can you not hear me?
I can. Mr. Kinton, Daryl, I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I had trouble getting off here.
Thank you. Mr. Haggerty,
Here.
Acting Chair Austin,
Here.
Ms. Lepowski,
Here.
Judy Brown is absent and Kate Fuller is absent. Mr. Atkins
Here.
and Mr. Adams.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. I believe the next item on the agenda is the approval of the draft November 17th, 2020 minutes. Nancy, will you please call for the vote?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Yeah, I was going to say I need a motion.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Colin.
I'll second. Oh,
Is there any discussion? All right, Nancy, can you call for the vote now?
I can. Ms. Townley,
yes.
Mr. Kinton,
Here. Yes.
thank you. Mr. Haggerty,
Yes.
Ms. Lepowski,
Yes.
Mr. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
and Acting Chair Austin.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for the approval. Yes. Is Troy making a comment?
Shouldn't be.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you all for attending, especially those of you out in the community. We really appreciate it. I would like to call I gotta go over here. I'm now opening the public hearing for the Winslow-Crane Site Development Plan, ZON 2020-001, WH Planned Unit Development, PUD Site Development Plan.
We'll need a motion in a second, Chair.
Okay, do I have a motion to open such a hearing?
I'll motion.
I'm sorry, Wade's sharing already. Is that you, Diane?
Yes, that was.
Thank you. Could I have a second, please?
I'll second.
And who was that, please?
Carol.
Okay. Ms. Townley,
Yes.
Mr. Kinton,
Yes.
Mr. Haggerty,
Yes.
Ms. Lepowski,
Yes.
Mr. Atkins,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
and Acting Chair Austin.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Burkholder, could you raise your right hand and I'll swear you in? And I can't see you for some reason. Hold on a second. Okay, do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in these proceedings before the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I do.
Please state your name.
Wade Burkholder.
Did we lose Nancy, or am I the only one who?
I don't know. I was about to
No.
ask the same thing. There, oh, there she is.
No? Oh, is Eric going to be doing the presentation? Do I need to
Yes.
swear?
Oh, yeah.
I
Yes.
apologize. Okay, Eric, please raise your right hand. I apologize.
Okay.
Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Planning and Zoning Commission?
Yes,
Thank you. Please state your name, and I do apologize.
that's okay. Eric Sampson. Good evening, everybody. So we are here for the public hearing for 3002 South Huron Street, the Winslow-Crane Plan Unit Development. A brief overview, as you can kind of see on the map above, this would be PUD number 9 on the map. And some of the other surrounding zonings are industrial. A PUD 10 is an apartment complex, the Ironworks apartment complex. And then there's some other R2B zone districts around there. On the right side, you can kind of see if the images aren't in your way, you can kind of see an overview of the property. It's a total of 6.12 acres, and currently there are a total of 9 separate parcels, all in this project that are going to be combined via minor subdivision. So in the end of it, it's all going to be one big parcel. So project overview, the developer is proposing 203 multifamily units. These will include a mix of studio, 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom units for a total of 176,529 square feet of residential floor area. And that's going to be a total of 12 buildings. 8 of these will be three-story walk-ups apartments with tuck-under garages. 3 will be 3-story townhomes, and there will be 1 centrally located amenity building, which will include the leasing office, meeting rooms, gathering space, and there will also be other amenities, including a pool, public gathering spaces, and also access to the future Englewood Rail Trail. This proposal also, there's a request to vacate right-of-way at 3 different locations on site, and that would be a part of our recommendation, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So just to give you all a brief overview of the PUD process, plan unit development is a rezoning process which establishes a specific zoning and site-specific criteria to meet the needs of a specific development proposal, which may not be accommodated by a single zone district. So this has potential to have multiple uses across potentially different zones. Also, the old Englewood PUD process could be done in 2 phases. It could be done in a district plan and then a site development plan, which we're going through now. This is part of the old 2-step process, where the district plan was approved by City Council back in March 2013. And the second part of the PUD process, the site development plan, is going through the public hearings now and will get final decision by City Council. There was also the stipulation back in 2013 that any further residential development on the property or commercial development go through the public process and have a Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation and a determination by, or a final approval by City Council. This property also has the stipulation that once there is commercial or residential buildings that have been built and have been issued certificates of occupancy, the industrial use no longer becomes an allowed use on the property. So all industrial zoning activities would cease once there is residential uses on site. So in the original district plan that was approved by council, a couple things wanted to point out. The max height allowed was 75 feet, and the height proposed by this development is 40 feet. The density allowed was 45 dwelling units per acre, and with 203 dwelling units proposed over the 6.12 acres. This is a total of 33 dwelling units per acre. And then the landscaping requirement was 25% open space, and the landscaping proposed includes 32.6% open space. Other features of this development include parking. In the original site development plan, it said it would go by the Unified Development Code to determine what parking would be required. And the UDC would require 345 spaces. I should point out that the site, the district plan also said that a reduction in parking could be proposed for residential uses. And so the proposed is 311 spaces, which is about a 10% reduction. And this was reviewed by the Inglewood traffic engineer and was found that the reduced parking is appropriate considering the proposed trail easement and the distance from the light rail station. Bike parking also referred to the UDC for the number of spaces. UDC would require 101.5 spaces. So the applicant is including 102 bicycle park spacing. For the traffic generation analysis that was done, the development is expected to generate 1,486 weekday trips, 93 of those in the AM, 114 of those in the evening. Again, the traffic engineer concluded that the proposed impact to the city's transportation network would require minimal mitigation from the developer. Also, utilities, drainage, fire have all reviewed the proposed plan through several development review team meetings that have taken place over the past 6 months and have no concerns with the proposed development. So the other part of this is the right-of-way vacation requests, which are kind of another key part to this project. And the first one is a portion of South Huron Street, which you can see in Exhibit A, if you're not covered up by faces, hopefully, which runs kind of down the center of the property, but that would be vacated and then incorporated into this development. And then the other one is a portion of West Cornell Avenue and a 16 feet public alleyway. Again, as you can see on the Exhibit B on the right-hand side. And again, this is both these proposed easements are entirely on the applicant's property. So the applicant had requested a waiver from Public Works for the reconstruction of a sidewalk along Galapago Street. And these Galapago Street addresses are not a part of the overall development. But we were interested in seeing kind of a uniform connectivity between the properties to the north and the properties to the south of the project. So this design waiver request had been denied. And the city is currently working with the applicant to determine best alternatives. I do believe, and the applicant can speak to this when they are doing their presentation, but I believe they have chosen to do the sidewalk redesign along Galapago. So overall, staff recommends approval of this case zone 2020-0001 with the following conditions. 1, administrative approval of a minor subdivision plat and piling with Arapahoe County be completed. And that would be the minor subdivision, which would combine all 9 of those parcels. 2 is the dedication of a 10-foot public trail easement for the future construction of the Inglewood Rail Trail, and approved by City Council of a memorandum of understanding for future construction considerations. 3 is the approval of the 3 right-of-way vacation requests for the portion of West Cornell Avenue, South Huron Street, and that 15 or the 16-foot public alley. And 4, removal or replacement of the existing sidewalk along Galapago Street. and across those properties located outside of the project, which have frontage on Galapago. Additionally, staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission review the 3 right-of-way vacation requests as above, and recommend those vacations for approval to City Council. So any questions for staff?
If I could just briefly break in here, I neglected to inform all of us and the public about the structure of the public hearing procedure. So if you don't mind, if I could just take a moment to do that now. We have obviously opened the public hearing and had a staff presentation. Then I'm assuming we're going to have an applicant presentation because there's lots of people on the screen here. And then we'll have a public testimony, and that's the time when the public can express their concerns and things that they want to have us hear about this proposal. There will be no dialogue with the commission. All we do is basically listen to you at that point. And then we'll have a final statement. And then after that, we'll close the public hearing. So I just wanted to clarify that procedure. Nancy, am I missing anything?
You are not. I would just add that for public testimony, it's a 3-minute time limit, so I'll time you and let you know. But you've covered it all very well,
Okay.
Michelle. Thank you.
No problem. With that said, Eric, I think Wade has been sworn in as well. Is there anything further from staff regarding this?
I don't have anything else at the moment unless Wade does.
Okay.
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. Should we move into the applicant presentation then?
I believe Commissioner Townley has her hand up for a question to staff.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, Kate.
No problem. I just had a couple questions, and then if you believe the applicant's going to get to these, then let me know. I just wanted to clarify the total number of units is 203. That's includes the multifamily, all the different building types. The total is 203 units.
Yes.
And then for the height, the proposed, so this gets confusing with the 2-step PUD process. So the existing PUD, or what we have in place, has a 75-foot height limit. What's proposed tonight has 40 feet, but then would the applicant still be able to build to 75 feet?
Not without submitting a different development proposal or site development plan.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And then is there any information on what the open space dedication or fee in lieu would be for the new residential that's being added to the site?
Wade, do you want to take that?
So there's a per unit, there's a $385 fee for the new developments for multifamily that gets paid during the building permit phase. That's wrapped into the building permit process. But the other open space includes, just areas of landscaping and gathering space around the site at various locations. And when we look at the landscape plan, the overall total exceeds the actual requirement of what the original PUD district plan required. So they are exceeding that requirement at this time with this plan.
Okay, and then for the right-of-way, can you just clarify too? So if we move forward with the recommendations later on, the right-of-way would be a condition of the PUD as well as a separate motion on each right-of-way. Sorry, I'm losing my words.
The
dedication.
Yeah.
The dedication of right-of-way is just a recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission. That essentially has to happen for this site development plan to move forward. For vacation of right-of-way, the city council actually holds separate public hearings on each one of the vacation of right-of-way requests. So what city council is looking for from this board is a recommendation that you all agree that these areas should be vacated, and then they will take that into consideration during their public hearings. Planning and Zoning Commission is not required to have its own public hearing for vacation of right-of-ways, but since we are in this public hearing forum, it just made sense to wrap all of those into this process tonight. It does get confusing. Let me know if that didn't answer your question, Commissioner Townley.
Yep, I think that's good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions at this time from the commission? Hi, Diane. Yes.
There, I just had one question for staff in regards to the right-of-way improvements that you're requesting of the applicant that are not adjacent to their property. I saw in one of the documents that such improvements would require I'm understanding, perhaps not quite understanding it. It sounds like it would require the removal of existing fences, retaining walls, driveway accesses, and landscaping. And this would, and the desired request for the applicant would be to reinstall all of those elements or just the sidewalk. And then sort of the second corollary question to that is, have any of the adjacent homeowners registered any concerns or comments about this request?
Yes, thank you for the question. The portion of the Galapagos sidewalk is a requirement that the city is imposing, simply because, you know, one of the reasons is we need a direct connection from Dartmouth to Bates continuously along Galapagos. There are 5 or 6 outlying properties separately owned that are also on that property. And through the years, there have been some improvements made within the city right-of-way, such as those fences and landscaping that has occurred. And in order for the continuous sidewalk to be constructed, we are looking at contacting those property owners to let them know that this project is coming. And it will be an individual negotiation. We haven't figured out, you know, whether or not we need to require those improvements be reinstalled. That will get into discussions when we get into that phase of this part of the project. We just don't know right now, but there will be a very collaborative effort to make sure those residents are aware that sidewalk is going to be replaced as a city requirement of this project being approved.
Thank you.
Yes, Colin, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I want to just make sure that I'm not going offline or anything like that. So is staff asking us just for approval of those right-of-way requests, or are we looking at the entire plan that's being presented as it's being presented and any of the information in there as it's being presented, just to make sure I'm asking the correct questions?
Thank you. Yes, you are looking at the entire plan, of which the vacation is part of.
Okay. I do have quite a few questions. One of them being, what defines open space? When you look at page 97 of the package, there seems to be a lot of parking. And does the pool include that is open space? I guess if it doesn't feel like looking at that's 37%. But again, if we want to go into these items after the presentation, I'm great with that. I just want to make sure I'm timing this right. So thank you for the clarification on what we're looking at though.
Yeah, and I think we can ask the applicants during the presentation to explain further. I know they'll have some graphics that we didn't have in our presentation that'll help show some visuals.
Okay, thank you. I'll hold my questions until after the other presentation then. Thank you.
Yes, Carl, I see your hand up. I think oh, there you go.
The vacations, is there 3 or 2?
There's 3. We have a portion of Cornell, which is west of Galapago. We have South Huron within the site, and then there's a public alleyway, dedicated alleyway internal to the site as well.
Okay, the alleyway and the Cornell are joined?
Yes. Yes. The visual that was shown by Eric, it sort of has an L shape to it.
Mm-hmm.
So Cornell's running east-west, the alley is running north-south, essentially.
And the square footage of all of those are about 24,000 square feet approximately that we're giving to them.
I'd have to verify that. I'd have to double check that, but in terms of exact square footages.
And my understanding is they will not do the rail trail sidewalk concrete. That will have to be done by.
As part of this. Sorry. This project is dedicating the rail trail easement, and at a future date, the city will go in and actually install the actual surface. But that easement will be dedicated for that purpose at this time.
The drawing shows some underground detention holding ponds. Is there a flood problem in that area? I wouldn't think so, but why are those being used, I guess?
Well, with the improvement of the site, they're going to have to capture the runoff that will now be created with the extra hardscape. So they're proposing to capture that runoff through underground detention. There are three ponds, I think, and I'll ask for clarification from the applicant. I believe 2 of them are underground and 1 is above ground. I may be incorrect on that, so I'll want to get verification for that.
Carl, would it be possible, it seems like your questions they're very good questions, but they're also quite detailed. Would it make some sense for us to move on to the applicant's presentation first and save some of those questions till after they've made their presentation?
Sure, that's fine. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. With that said, who will be the first up for the applicant's presentation?
That would be me.
Actually, if I could have all of the applicant team that's going to be speaking on camera at once, I'll swear you all in at one time. And then if you could, as you're speaking, just state your name and your address before you speak. So does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Wonderful. If you could just all raise your right hand. And gosh, I just lost my oath. Hold on. Gosh, I only say it a million times. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I do.
Yes.
Everybody does. And then whoever's speaking, please state your name and your address.
My name is J.R. Ronzi. I live in the corner of 17th Avenue and Downing Street in Denver.
Thank you.
And let me start. Thank you, Eric and Wade, for your presentation. Commissioners, staff, and attendees, thank you for your time this evening, allowing us to present to you. What I'd like to do is start out by introducing our project team. We have Bryant Winslow, Dartmouth MFP, Alex Krasnick and Brett Parmalee from Saunders Commercial Development Company, Terry Willis and myself, James J. Aronzi from KTGY Architecture and Planning. Our civil engineer is Kevin Roth with Roth Lang Engineering Group. Our landscape architect is Nathan Stark from Russell Mills Studio. Next, please. For your reference, the site is located just off the corner of Dartmouth and South Galapago. As indicated here, you can see the little notch out of the triangular site are the individual single-family homes that are not part of this development. Next, please. As Eric had stated previously, we're proposing to build 203 apartment units on the site. We're including 219 surface parking spaces, 92 tuck under parking spaces in 11 three-story walk-up apartment buildings with a centrally located clubhouse. As had been stated previously, we've got 27 studios, 134 one-bedroom apartments, and 42 two-bedroom apartments. The primary entrance to the site will be aligned with West Cornell Avenue. We'll have an access point also on Galapago at the south end of the property, and a third access point at the north end of the property near Dartmouth Avenue. Next, please. This is our site plan. As you can see, centrally located, you can see the swimming pool in the central part of the site, the access point at the south end of the site, which is on the right-hand side off of Galapago, the centrally located site immediately opposite of Cornell, and at the north end of the site, the access point off of Galapago. As you can see, we're proposing 8 buildings, all of them 3 stories. The clubhouse centrally located is a 2-story clubhouse with the amenity facilities as described earlier. At the south end of the site, we can see building 10, 11, and 12. These are 2-story duplex apartment buildings. We have a surface detention pond at the southwest corner of the site and 2 centrally or located underground detention between buildings 4 and 5. Next, please. Oh, and let me, before we move, and I'm sorry, can we back that up 1 second? And as you can see along the west end of the site, between the property and the railroad tracks, is the dedicated easement for the future rail trail. Okay, next, please. We would like to give you a quick view of renderings of some of the buildings on the site. All 3-story buildings in a very contemporary architectural expression with a mixture of sloped roofs and flat roofs with parapets, screening any rooftop mechanical equipment. We'll have composition shingles, TPO roofs. We've got a fiber cement rain screen with different textures, both the white you see here with a lap siding rain screen product and a simulated wood product in the central part of the elevation. Next, please. This is the what I guess we would call the backside, the access, the residential access view of the buildings. Tuck under garages along the first floor with 2 resident entries in between those. Next, please. This is views of the 3-story duplex units that are facing Dartmouth. This is the view from inside the property. Next, please. And our centrally located clubhouse with outdoor space for a yoga room, the central entry where you can see the pedestrians, and a couple of roof decks to take advantage of the views to the west of the mountains. Next, please. And if, as we have any questions, Kevin will be able to answer any questions about the technical and civil aspects of the project. At this time, I would like to hand our presentation off to Brooke Parmalee, if I may.
Great, thanks, JR. I'm Brett Parmalee. Address is 1302 South Vine Street, Denver, Colorado. So first and foremost, members of the commission and the public that are here, thank you all for the time this evening and appreciate your willingness to let us present the project here that we're, this is something we're really excited about and look forward to helping resolve any questions you may have and familiarizing your team with the project. So quick background on the development team, the applicant team, if you will, led by Saunders Development and the Winslow family. So I'll turn it over to Bryant here in a second and let him give a little background on the Winslow family and their long history with the site. But we've partnered together to develop this project with the intention of really building, finalizing this component of the residential use throughout the General Iron site, adding some multifamily market rate apartments here, and with the view towards a long-term community asset that's really going to complement the local community, add to the vibrancy of the neighborhood and what's happening in this whole area. For a quick background on Saunders Development, many of you may know Saunders Construction as a 40-year-old general contractor based here in Denver or in the Denver area, focused throughout the region, and really have spent 40 years building projects, all different types of projects for various different customers, but with one key focus really on building relationships throughout those projects with repeat customers and in communities that we're doing work multiple times in. And so a number of years ago, we started a development platform, and this is one of the projects that we're really excited about out of our development platform, and partnering with the Winslow family to, again, expand on a great relationship with us and for the work that that we've done in Inglewood historically, to also deliver another great project here in the city. We're focused on development projects with a long-term hold vision. So our outlook and design process, build process is all really through that lens of expecting we're going to own the project for the long term. So we're not, we're not short-term horizon view, or we don't take a short-term view on any of the building materials, layouts, things like that. We want to make sure we're delivering something that's both compatible with the local community, fits within the site that we're working on, and then also delivers delivers on creating jobs, bringing economic vibrancy into the area through the construction project, and then on a long-term basis brings active residents into the community and can continue to add to that vibrancy, especially what's continued to happen in this area of town, along with a number of other projects. So I think JR did a great job of the overview of the project. Happy to answer questions in the best format possible. But with that, I'll pass it off here to Bryant to give a little background on his family and the role in the project too.
Thanks, Brett. I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Bryant Winslow. My address is 3002 South Huron in Inglewood. Commissioners, community, I really appreciate you all.
I apologize. I don't know if the other commissioners can't hear you, but I cannot hear you.
I was just about to mention the same thing. We're having great difficulty hearing you.
Maybe I should, does this help if I put the microphone a little bit closer to my mouth?
It does. Thank you so much.
Technology, it's a wonderful thing. Well, everybody, again, my name is Bryant Winslow. My address is 3002 South Huron in Inglewood. And I want to thank everybody for taking the time to hear our presentation today. I'll just, I think JR and Brett did a fantastic job hitting the high points of our project. So I'll just give everybody who isn't familiar with the site a quick background on my family and our relationship to the property. My family's been a part of Inglewood since the late 1920s, and we've been associated, believe it or not, with this property since the 1940s. So I'm the third generation associated with this land, and it has a special meaning for me because it's my connection to my grandfather and the construction companies that he started here in the late 1940s. The redevelopment of this site actually started back in 2010 when the city of Inglewood actually came to my family after our acquisition of the General Iron property and asked if we would consider taking both properties through the PUD process, master planning them, and start to transition out of the industrial development that is, long occupied both of these properties. So I'm really excited about what I'll consider the final phase of our master plan. The first phase being General Iron, where we had for sale housing, single family residential for sale housing, and an affordable component. And this sort of represents the final phase of what I would call, a market rate apartment, albeit at what I would call the lower end of the price point, given how crazy the Colorado market has grown over the last 10 years. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to Brett. And I think that probably concludes our presentation, and we'll open it up to questions from the commissioners.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Thanks, Bryant. We walked through our presentation largely. I know there's some questions. Nancy or Chair of the Commission had passed back to you guys, I guess, in what best format you want to facilitate those questions. We're happy to work through them.
Well, I am trying to get my screen to show everybody so I can see hands raised. So Nancy, I may need a little help with that.
Whoops, sorry. I don't see any hands at the moment.
I've got my hand up. This is Colin.
Great. Thank you, Colin.
Go ahead then.
Yes, please.
Okay. I have kind of I'll do a list of questions here, and so I'll maybe go one by one. We can kind of go through these. Again, going back to the open space, what are we defining as open space, and is there something to kind of help clarify where that 37% comes from that exceeds it? Maybe just to get an idea. I do think it's a really nice looking project, and I think it's a great benefit to the area, and I can appreciate, Mr. Winslow, your history with the project and with the site and what that means. And so wanted to start with that, but then wanted to go into a few of these questions. So what defines that open space portion of it?
I'm happy. I guess, Wade, Eric, you guys tell me if you want to give the city code response or whatnot. I guess taking a step back logistics wise, do questions specific for the applicant, for city staff, or do we want to just answer them whoever speaks up? How should we best handle it?
Wade, I'll let you answer that. I believe we had your presentation already, so these are applicant questions, unless I'm missing something on that.
That's correct, Brian. If you or your team want to answer that, that's fine.
Yeah, no problem. That works. So the open space excludes parking anywhere where the building, the structures are, driveways. any of that kind of paved drive lanes and parking, or where the buildings are. It includes green space, landscaping, the trail easement, walkways, things of that nature. So I don't have the exact code answer, if you will, but I know relative to our site plan, that's the calculation that's included in the open space.
Right, and Brett, if this is Wade, if I could just add on, I want to make it clear that yes, it does include the sidewalks, it includes the rail trail, it includes the areas of additional green by the detention pond to the southwest corner, and then the landscaping around the buildings and the parking islands, and
I'm sure those
that
calculations.
sort of thing.
Okay, and you've checked those calculations. I'm sure that they're. It seems a little less than 37%, but I know that could be an optical thing here. Moving on. Looking at that right-of-way vacation behind onto the west side of those existing properties, there looks like there's going to be a 16-foot easement through there. Will that be sufficient to allow those residents to access that area also? Do we need to give them an access easement if they've got garages and things like that back there, or will that utility easement be sufficient for them for the long term?
It is a transportation and utility easement, so it does cover access as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and Colin, we feel like, I don't know if you can hear me, Colin, but
yes,
we feel like, or at least me specifically as a longtime resident, specifically of this property, you know, that poor alley has been a rutted dirt road prone for potholes and collecting of water. So, you know, one of the things that I'm excited about personally is all of that will get paved. The residents will still have access. You know, the trash truck will still be able to get through and collect waste and disposal. But now it will be an improved roadway that will be fully paved.
I was lucky enough, I guess, to be next to a development that had to pave our alleyway, and I can't tell you how excited I was about that situation happening. So there was comments on the parking study and parking reduction study, and I think we're, you know, I'm not going to speak for everybody. I'm in agreement with a reduction of the normal parking standards, but Guy had quite a few comments associated with those. How are those being tracked, and do we get to see those before, or how are we tracked, and how do we get to see those before it gets approved, or do we get to see those, or how does that work?
Those will continue to be tracked through the construction documents, as well as prior to any building permit being issued. Any sort of outstanding tweaks that need to happen would be sure to be, we would make sure they would happen before any permits were issued.
Okay, I guess part of that was he had questions on like what that distance, well, I'm not sure if his questions were exactly what that distance was to the light rail, but whether the reduction was right. I think his final comment was, it seems reasonable, they seem right, but there was some additional questions. So I guess what was that distance that we're using? Is it a walkable distance really to the light rail? How are you guys factoring in that reduction?
Yeah, I think I'll jump in just real quick, at least to go and kind of to highlight at least at one point. We're certainly aligned with you in ensuring that we have sufficient parking, right? The project won't work for us. And the last thing any of us want is to build an apartment complex and, you know, have a bunch of vacant apartments, right? Because people don't have parking and need parking. So I think in our review in the parking study that we had done, as well as concluding some pretty comprehensive market data across other projects in both in this submarket and across the Denver metro area, we got really comfortable ultimately at, again, the parking ratio that we've provided at 1.5 parking spaces per unit, which with these size units, right, equates to 1.3 parking spaces for every bedroom. So, right, if we think about that, every single bedroom is going to have more than one space throughout the project. So that really kind of got us comfortable that I think there's going to be sufficient parking for if everybody has a car, that will be satisfactory there.
And along with the parking comes the traffic side, and obviously impacts the Galapagos. It doesn't look like there's any requirement for a light at Dartmouth and Galapagos. I was a little surprised by that. Is there any maybe further thoughts on the need for that? Or is most of the traffic going to Santa Fe, and that's the reasoning?
Maybe I can jump in and try and answer that question. Colin, I'm not a traffic expert, but having been associated with this property for many, many years, I think one of the big challenges is the light at Inca and its relationship to Galapagos and ultimately Santa Fe.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the reason why we've reduced the density on this site so that we don't cause a traffic problem. And I think that, the entire development team's done a pretty good job of staying within, the confines of the project and the surrounding infrastructure so that we build something that is sustainable and successful, not only for the project, but for the entire community.
Okay. I've got one more. I've got a couple more questions. I'm going to go one more if I can, and then I'll let everybody else have a chance. The underground detention, is that maintained privately? And I guess who owns that? Who maintains that? And was there going to be a drainage report included, or is that just something that the city approves and is good to go there?
Yeah, what I may do, Colin, is ask Kevin Roth, our civil engineer, to jump in, can provide a little more background on that detention.
Is he there?
I see his mouth moving.
Oh, there's Kevin right there. No, we can't hear you.
It doesn't show that he's on mute.
No.
Maybe interest time. Oh,
I was just going to say, I can jump. I mean, the private detention ponds underneath will be private, right? So they'll be maintained by us, and they're located there. Again, the two underground and the one above grade over there.
So I just want to make sure you will be maintaining those, not the city.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, they're privately maintained. And then to your second question around the drainage study, there's a preliminary drainage study that has been done. It's been approved at the final plat, or at the plat finalization. There will be a final drainage study to support those as well, ensure that we're adequately covering it.
Okay, because we obviously have some issues around these areas, and always good to make sure that we're all understanding what's going on there. So appreciate that. I think I've managed to take up enough time here, so I'll step away for a minute and let everyone else go in. Thank you.
Any other commissioners want to raise their hand?
Daryl Kenton is next.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nancy.
Hi, I want to congratulate the applicant on not rushing this project, as I was involved at the other end of the project, and I know that you put a lot of time into it. And I just, obviously you're wanting to do it right. I am a little concerned about what Colin brought up about the intersection and traffic problems there. And I appreciate the fact that you're trying to not have so much density that it's going to be more of a problem, but I do anticipate a problem at that intersection at Dartmouth, and I'm not it's not enough. It's a concern that I think is going to have to be dealt with somehow. My other question, I guess, was about what types of, incomes and people are going to be able to get in this housing. Obviously, this serves a need and is an opportunity to bring in some good new residents to Englewood. I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more about what types of incomes and people you think will be brought in with this development, and what housing needs it might serve for people that will come into the community, new to the community, as well as possibly people that are already here that can take advantage of what's offered.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Daryl, for the questions. I think on the applicant pool or whatnot, or kind of the tenant base, we don't have any. I'll be very clear that we don't have any specific demographic target. It's going to be open. I will say, it's going to be market rate apartments. So the market will drive where these apartments will be rented. We have, again, we have expectations, I'll say, of 3 years from now where that is, but that's kind of a crystal ball that nobody really knows. I will say, again, there'll be market rate, but I think as we think about this project, where it is, and we do believe it'll bring a number of new residents into the area, also opening up opportunity for existing residents if they do want to move into newer product. I think there's there's a great mix across this project and the other projects that the Winslow family has been a part of in the beginning across the rest of the General Iron site. And when we think about the mix of these 203 market rate rental apartments plus the 70 units that are right up the street at the Foundry, that combines, that's about a 25% of the kind of collective project at affordable, and those of the Foundry are deed restricted affordable units. So I think there's a good mix, and again, a mix of price points for sale, for rent, across the numerous projects that the Winslow family has kind of led getting into the General Iron site.
And maybe Daryl, I'll jump in and piggyback on to a few things that Brett pointed out. I think it should be noted that of the 203 units, almost 160 of those units will be studios and 1-bedrooms, which will help push the cost per square foot down. Well, excuse me, will help push the gross rent down for those tenants. And so, I envision those, being, I couldn't even, I guess, quantify that to an annual income, but I would say it would be, normal, everyday citizens, working class people, young students catching the light rail to go to the Metro campus, CU Denver campus downtown. I think that relative to what's being built around the city, these will be at the low end of the market rate, apartment spectrum, and I think that'll make them pretty doggone affordable relative to what's being built in other parts of the city. Also, to answer your question about the intersection at Dartmouth and Galapago, the traffic report notes that once this project is up and stabilized, that the intersection will be running at I guess they grade it at a B or better intersection, which is a fully functioning, for lack of a better term, and since I'm not a traffic engineer, a healthy intersection. Surprisingly, there was a lot of construction traffic coming in and out of Winslow-Crane and Winslow Construction every day. And a lot of that traffic was semis and tractor trailers and our big cranes. So, we're really removing a lot of that big equipment and the impediment that they create in those intersections, and and the traffic that backs up behind them, and replacing them, with, regular vehicles, 2-axle vehicles. So I think that drives a lot of what's behind that positive traffic report. And it, Daryl, I might add that we had to get a traffic report back in, I think it was 2012 or 13 when the PUD was approved. And this traffic, and again, back in those days, the traffic study was very favorable. And this updated traffic study seems to reflect that current condition of, keeping that intersection at Galapago and Dartmouth healthy. So we feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, thank you. I do appreciate the thought that you guys have put into this, and and also the fact that you're designing this in a way I think is going to meet a real need for housing at a price, at a reasonable. I mean, it's market rate, but it's at a, like you said, with the smaller sizes, I think it will really fill a niche of housing that we need. So thanks for that.
Kate Townley is next.
Thank you. Just wanted to say this is not an easy shape of a site to work with. Some challenges there, but I think you've come up with a good plan, especially considering those constraints. And I think it's great also that you're willing to work with the city on the rail trail easement, and that's a big piece regionally as well as for the city. So I think that is great. I was just wondering if someone could walk us through the circulation, interior circulation of the site, as well as the lighting plan, just to give us some more detail on that.
That's a good one, Kate. Where I think so the circular. I'm trying to think if JR, you want to take this one, or I can take it. Okay.
Yeah, I could speak to the circulation. The pedestrian circulation, I think, first off, is going to be largely through the way these buildings are laid out is, as you can see, the internally facing the internally to the site is where we have our garages and access. So the vehicular access really circulates through the central portions of the site, accessing the buildings that way. Each of the buildings has entries both on the parking side and on the fronts or the pedestrian side. So our goal was to provide a more street and residential friendly access and face to the buildings facing the street, and really keep the garages and the vehicular access off the street and internal to the site. So we have a good network of accessible paths through the site that gets people to the clubhouse. Clubhouse is centrally located, the pool centrally located. So everybody's got fairly good access to the clubhouse and the amenities. We also have a separate mail building that is located just west of Building 4, a mail pavilion. So all the mailboxes for the project are centrally located near the clubhouse. Gives the opportunity for residents to gather, mingle, interact. So there isn't this silent, lonely trek to the mailbox all alone. And also between buildings 2 and 9, just to the south end of the site, we've got a small dog walking area, a small dog park. And I think that, most pedestrian circulation is both internal and perimeter of the site as well as internal to the site. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, and then I was just, is there three different access points, vehicular access points then along Galapago
That's correct. So the central and the primary entrance is opposite Cornell, right where the arrow is pointing. And then at the south end of the site, which is the existing curb cut from the Winslow-Crane property off Galapago. And then also at the north end, we have the access to the site.
Thank you. And if someone could speak to the lighting, that would be great. I looked at some of the plans, but if you have any other info on that.
I will. I can speak to it as a not as a lighting consultant, but as an architect. So one of the goals is to keep the light leakage from the perimeter of the site to a minimum, so that we're not shining lights in neighbors' eyes, and keeping enough a nice enough level of light that will be along the rail trail. So that there's a relative sense of comfort along those. And then there's just a general low level of lighting, enough to provide a comfortable level of light to find our way around. Probably a little more light around the pool area, and with directional lighting, so that lighting isn't shining into the windows of the adjacent buildings.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Sure. You're welcome.
And then Diane has her hand up.
Thank you. My questions are a little different than the previous questions, although possibly related. With regards to the parking, not to beat a dead horse, but I'm curious, because I did look at the study that said, we looked at Lone Tree, we looked at Lakewood, and this site would be providing 80 or 140 more spaces than those jurisdictions would be requiring. Considering the proximity to the light rail, the proximity to the bike trails, I'm curious how you came up with that. I think you said 1.5 parking ratio or 1.3 per bedroom. To Colin's note, it does seem like there could be some wiggle room there to provide a little bit more green space, because internal to the development, it does look pretty parking heavy. So I'm curious if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. I'll take that one. So I think, look, I'll tell you first, there's no perfect science to get to the exact number, knowing exactly what we'll need. So it's a combination that we work through of what that 1.5 times or 1.5 stalls per unit, kind of, again, triangulating based on other projects and what we've seen as utilization at those other projects. And then admittedly, there's also a combination of the factor of where the code minimum is today, right? And not deviating and trying to get as close as we can and whatnot, in working within the city's code too. So I think we feel like that, again, that 1.3 per bedroom is certainly going to be sufficient. I think there's certainly room if if we were to get the feedback that there's too much parking and we need to lose some, I don't think we would fight against losing some of the spaces, but we wouldn't want to shrink it too much. And again, that, well, as Wade and Eric pointed out, right, the 10% reduction from where that code is today, we also didn't want to work to, propose a plan that showed a 50% reduction, even if, you could point to one other a project in Lakewood or Lone Tree or something that count seems to work there. We do think, at least me personally as well, do agree that while I think people are utilizing a number of different modes of transportation, unfortunately today that, the lion's share of people are still using cars as their primary method. So
Fair enough.
That kind of answer it, Diane?
Hey, I'm over 65. Don't put me in that don't put me there.
No, that was a very helpful response. And I know that we are going through a public process of looking at the existing zoning code. And I know that at least on the committees I'm on, that the parking being, that there's definitely a difference of opinion about what's the right amount of parking, too much, too little, but I know it's definitely a topic of conversation to reduce it somewhat. So I know I could definitely say I would be in favor of that. And to that end, or actually to the next point, which is a little bit piggybacking on Kate's comments with regards to the landscaping. This is possibly a bit of a city question as well. For this PUD, what was the requirement for the right-of-way for sidewalk? I noticed there are all attached walks. I know Englewood has a predilection for doing attached walks. As someone who loves jogging and gets a crazy sunburn all the time, I prefer the detached walks with shade. So I'm curious how we came to that.
Yeah, Wade or Eric, I'll let you guys take from the city's perspective if you want to on the city standard there, and then happy to talk through on our side.
We don't necessarily have a standard where we require attached or detached that I'm aware of. You know, I think this is what was proposed. I don't think we really had conversations being detached. So I don't think I really have a great answer for that.
Noticed in the rendering,
Eric, if you
that the sidewalk is shown as detached.
in this slide here.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I can speak. I can speak to that as really as renderer's freedom, taking liberties with the actual conditions. You know, the goal here was to show the building, and so the rendering does reflect a detached sidewalk. So to that extent, there's a certain level of inaccuracy.
Fair enough. I think that's other than the ownership of the rail trail, which I think I heard previously that easement would be taken over by the city. The city would own, maintain, install anything that would go in there. Is that what I heard? Yeah, I see it. A shaking head.
The shaking heads. Yep. Yeah, that's correct. That's the memo of understanding that we've worked on there to grant the easement there as the city puts the project together.
Okay, thank you. Oh, go ahead.
The only other thing is, Diane, I would just say to your earlier question around, you know, the sidewalk around those private residences along Galapago. I think we're certainly expecting and planning to work in close coordination with the city to figure that out. That's as noted in the staff report. We had asked for that variance, and I think really the biggest touching point and the tough issue there is that private residents have built their own improvements and things that are in the right of way. And so then we're being asked, right, to put things in the right of way, but you can't have both things. You can't have fencing on top of sidewalk. So we've got to figure that out in how it works out with all those residents. So we're certainly committed to working with the city to figure out the right solution and work through those.
Thank you. Thank you for answering my questions. And I think overall, this is a great project for the city, and I'm excited to have sort of this big of a development with this many rooms and opportunities for people to live near biking, light rail, the library, the new the new city center. So that's it from me.
I do not see any other. Oh, Ms. Townley has another question.
I did to piggyback on Diane's question about the sidewalks. And it looked like we have in like 1665, the pedestrian bicycle connectivity section, that there should be detached sidewalks along all local collector and arterial streets. But that could change within a PUD. But if the, I don't know if Wade or folks do, if you have information, at least along Dartmouth, if that is, or from the site plan, that we just confirm. So that is not going to be a detached sidewalk along Dartmouth, at least in this proposal.
So I'll take at least from our side, our property doesn't stretch all the way down to Dartmouth. So along Dartmouth isn't our property. So that's actually down a pretty steep slope there. So we don't have the sidewalk we're doing down there.
That's like considered an internal walkway then, in front of those properties along Dartmouth. Okay.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Any other hands, Nancy? I want to get back to Carl. Carl, you had some good questions and I cut you off a little bit short.
There are no other hands, so.
Wait, this is Colin, and I'm happy to, Carl, if you want to go first, but whenever.
I got a quick one here. It's kind of related to the traffic at Galapago and Dartmouth there. The traffic's going to be, there will be more traffic on Galapago going on to Dartmouth. And as soon as you turn that corner there's a crosswalk right there. And if there's, I don't believe there's a light on that. Well, there is a light on that crosswalk, but it's not controlled by there's no button there to hit for people to walk across there. And there probably should be some change to that, so there is a button for people to walk across there. So, because they'll be on their way to the light rail station, and they'll have to cross Dartmouth right there.
Or the park. They might be going to the park too.
And the park, yeah. Or Walmart. You know, there's a lot of places, south of there to go. So, if there could be a little bit of traffic investigation into that, I believe that would, because if there's no button there for the pedestrians and the light turns red, and there's no traffic, they might just walk across instead of waiting for the light. If there's a button there, they will hit the button, wait, maybe. I don't know. That's all for now.
Yeah, I think just to, Carl, I appreciate the comment, and we're certainly keenly focused as a lot of the discussion and a lot of our planning as well has been around getting people to the light rail effectively. So I do think, I think that lighted Inca, there is a pedestrian button, at least on the north side of Dartmouth. I can't visualize right now the pole on the south side, but I know on the north side of Dartmouth, there is a button for pedestrians for that crosswalk to get across Dartmouth.
I see Colin's hand up. Carl, are you finished?
Yeah, for now.
Okay. Colin?
Thank you. I did confirm there is a light at Inca on the south side also. Just clarification. That's a great question, Carl. Speaking of the very south entrance, will that be a right in, right out due to the proximity to Dartmouth? Will that be restricted access on that side?
I'll have to double check on, but I think after my gut reaction to the plan is I don't think that's a restricted right in, right out. I think it could be left out of there and a turn in, but I'd have to double check. Kevin's our civil engineer who's double checking that we can see his mouth move but not talk.
I thought I just heard a faint voice from him. Nope, maybe not.
I did too. I heard it. Can you hear me now?
That's what I heard.
I heard it. The same thing, yeah.
Okay.
Kevin, do you want to try and unmute?
He just, I think it was just, you probably heard him through.
I mean, it's okay.
Yeah, I think you're
Okay.
hearing it across from me. So it won't be restricted. It won't be restricted as designed today. We have, in talking with the traffic engineer, that was never brought up, but certainly a good question. So.
Okay. And then it does look like south of building 3, there's an access to Galapago. Is that not the case? Is that just a rendering, on this image?
Yeah, that is correct. There is an opening. That's the alley access, right? That'll come down to still service.
So that'll be like a
By that
fire
alley.
lane, like it won't be an actual access, but some sort of restriction on that or something along those lines?
No, it will be an access. It won't be a primary access for tenants in the project, mostly for trash and things that'll come along the backside of Galapago still service that alley as shown there.
Okay.
Nate or JR, feel free to jump in if I'm mischaracterizing something there.
No, that's correct. The intent is in vacating the alley just west of building 3. This allows retain the alley access in a continuous single direction, so that trash trucks or service vehicles or people's don't have to come in and back up and try and pull around. They just have a single straight run through the alley.
Okay. Then 2 more. Is there are you proposing a sidewalk on the very west side of the building adjacent to the trail? And will there be any separation between those? Is there like some sort of fence to restrict access, or will that just be wide open, or a double sidewalk, or how will that work?
Sorry, I'll let either JR or Nate.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So that building 7 and actually building 6 and building 8 will have direct access to the trail. So I guess over time, as a trail is designed, the intent is that trail and sidewalk will be one and the same at that stretch. There won't be a fence or gates or anything between them.
There'll be the trail and the sidewalk. It won't be a shared. You want to have the access. You're not utilizing that easement for access to building 7 and 6 are, well, 6 probably not, because I think the trail's on the other side.
Correct.
Correct. We'll have both the sidewalk and then the trail. Oh, Jay. Yeah. JR, we've got you on mute.
There we go. My apologies. Okay. So yeah, the sidewalk and the trail will be one and the same.
Okay, so people going down the trail on a bike or anything like that, once that's continued, are going to be sharing the trail with people trying to access the buildings?
Yeah, that would be correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
it doesn't seem like a great idea. Yeah.
well, those actually wouldn't be the primary access. I mean, as you see the layout of the building, there's 3 access points on the east side of the building, and for internal circulation, whether those people are going to their cars on surface parked or to their garages, or accessing the clubhouse or any of the other amenities on the project, they'll be primarily accessing those through the east side of the building. And then the access points on the west side of the building will be minimal.
Okay. And concerns me a little bit, but I'm sure you guys are long-term owners of this. Maybe not you guys, but Winslow Saunders. So it seems a little troublesome, but I'll let the city or you guys figure that out. I don't think that's necessarily a zoning question, other just a question I had. And then the last question I do have that does really concern me is the size of the garages. I've seen in a lot of places, there's a garage, right, that has no ability to actually fit a car. What are the sizes of those? How are those minimums set, and how do we understand, what fits in there?
And I'll be happy to answer that. The garages are set at an absolute minimum are larger, slightly larger than the required spaces, which is, if memory serves me correct, are 9 feet by 18 feet. Our garages are approximately 10 feet by 20 feet. If that answers your question.
Now I have to find my mute button. It does. I guess. Like I said, and maybe Wade or you could confirm. I don't know that we have a minimum garage size. It just goes into that question of what's going to be usable. Is it going to end up being storage for places as opposed to parking? I feel like 10 foot by 20 foot would fit somebody's truck. If that's their only vehicle that they have as a work truck or something like that. But I just wasn't sure if you guys, I've seen some of the the sixplexes that have or the slot homes that have 2-car garages that really are just 1-car garage. They're not big enough for 2 cars. And so, it's probably a little different with just a 1 car. Makes a little more sense to have one space, but I just want to make sure that was kind of thought through a little bit too.
No, so each of the garages are individual single space garages. So nobody's sharing a garage with another person, or there's no 2-car garages. And at 10 feet by 20 feet, it's slightly larger than the required parking space, which, at 9 by 18 is, as a inner city dweller, I would consider generous. But I know it works for most people with larger cars and SUVs and the like. So I think the 10 foot by 20 feet is adequate. And Brett, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you won't be allowing people to not park in their garage and store things and use them for storage.
Yeah, the intent of the garage is certainly, Colin, to your point, is that people are functionally utilizing them as parking. And so I think that, again, to make them functional so that they're useful that way, that people can get their vehicles in there. And then JR's second point of highlighting that each garage is an individual garage, right? So if somebody, if you're down the road, they're not being used and somebody has 2 vehicles and wants to rent 2 garages, you can do that, but it's 2 separate garages, right? It's not just one garage that we list as 2 and you can't actually park 2 in.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Nancy, do you see any further hands up?
I do not from the commissioners.
Okay.
That looks like we got a few questions from.
Oh, Newell does. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see any electronic hands. Sorry, I just saw Noel pop up on the screen.
Noel?
Great, thank you. I had a question about how the residents of the buildings that are not along Galapagos would access the sidewalk along Dartmouth to get to the light rail station. So I see the rail trail that passes by, but I can't quite tell, would they come all the way to that northwest corner and then head all the way east to get to Galapagos? Or would people, be walking kind of from, say, building 7 through the internal parking lots back through the alleyway and out to where Galapagos and Dartmouth meet? Just trying to understand how that traffic flow would work, pedestrian traffic flow.
Yeah, no, good question. I think our expectation is that the most primary tenants within this space will head to Galapagos and walk along that sidewalk there and take that pedestrian route along Galapagos to Dartmouth, come down to the pedestrian crossing at Inca and then go across. I think that's once the rail trail is in, I think people will certainly take that a bit as well from for example, if you're in building 7, in building 6 is a bit of a toss up. Again, once you get down, there's a big grade change from where the road is at Dartmouth and where you cross, to where you're much higher up when you're on Galapagos. So I think people will probably get to Galapagos and walk down.
And if I might just interject, this is Wade, real quick. There is a future capital project that takes a pedestrian bridge over Dartmouth from the rail trail, so it would connect over parallel to the tracks. But yes, until that time, they would take the route as described.
Great, thank you.
Any further hands up, Nancy?
I do not see any.
Okay, that said, I have one quick question. Do you anticipate charging for parking?
Yeah, I think so. Just real quick, Carl, I did see your hand up, so we'll make sure
Oh, I'm
we
sorry.
hit your question as well. But to your question around parking payment, it'll be market driven. I don't have a firm answer yes or no. To be honest, right now, I think there is an expectation with if you were going to rent a garage that there's going to be a cost associated with that in terms of the surface parking. It'll be market driven for when we get there. If there's demand in excess of it, we would. But right now, I would say we're targeting just at the garages.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, the surface parking, excluding the garages, will be available only to residents and they will not be charged for that.
Correct. So the parking will be available for residents only, and to make sure that we're supporting and providing adequate parking for those tenants. Our expectation today, we don't have the exact, we don't have exact leases that folks are signing now, but our expectation today is that there will be a charge for garage parking, but not for surface parking.
Okay. I'm sorry, I think Carl, was your hand up and I interrupted you?
I got a question. I can't remember for sure, but isn't there some electric car it's installed somewhere in there? Or not?
Yep. Yeah, there is. So our plan would comply with the city's requirement there. We'd have one of the charging stations near the clubhouse is the initial one. And that would service, I believe, 2 vehicles. JR, jump in here if I'm getting the numbers wrong. But yeah, 2 vehicles initially, and then we'd have conduit run for additional charging stations to potentially come in.
Okay. One other thing is, I was over there and took a look at the site, and in the middle of the north half of it, there was a bunch of pipes in the ground, and it looked like they were protecting fuel pumps over there. So I'm assuming that the fuel pumps were removed and the tanks are still there. Is that true?
Carl, this is Bryant. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Those bollards were in the ground to protect the above grade fuel storage for the construction operation that has since vacated. So,
well, Brian, could you put your microphone to your...
sorry, I forgot. Carl, my apologies. Yes, you're correct. Those bollards were in the ground to protect the above grade fuel storage that we had before the construction operation was vacated. All of that will be removed if we're fortunate enough to receive, approval moving forward when we start our earth moving effort.
Thank you.
Okay, any further from the commission?
I am not seeing anyone.
Okay. Nancy, do you want to tell us who would be up first for public testimony?
So we need to go to the Inglewood Civic Center, down to the community room. See if there's anyone there. Shelley, are you there?
Oh, somebody's jogging to something.
Hey guys, we're here.
There is no public to speak.
Okay, thank you. So there's no one to speak in person. So we'll go to our virtual attendees. So based on my list that I had from previous, Ms. Brown is no longer in the meeting. I have one hand up and it's Taylor, so we'll bring Taylor in to speak. Taylor, can you put your video on?
Sure. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
Can you see me?
Not yet, maybe. Hold on, it rearranged on me. I can. Can you raise your right hand? I'll swear you in. Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I do.
And I would remind you, you have 3 minutes, and the commissioners and the applicants and staff cannot respond to questions at this time.
Sure. Okay. These are more, I guess, comments and things to take into consideration.
Wonderful.
So I understand a lot of the things that were discussed in this call were really specifically about the residence itself, but I'm speaking on behalf of a resident of one of the adjacent streets. I'm on South Fox and Dartmouth. So I'm just curious, with the influx of at least 203 dwellings, which brings us to, let's say, around 400 additional people that will be residing within those 2 blocks of within that lot of land. I'm concerned about just that volume that will get on, not only on the roads, like with cars, but also just foot traffic. So with the volume of people, I'm concerned that there are not a sufficient amount of lampposts on these roads, specifically on South Fox and on Galapagos. I'm assuming that these people that will live in the residence will not only stay within the residence, they will be walking around on adjacent streets. So that's a concern. The traffic is a big concern to me because with those 203 residences, there will be a minimum of 200 cars that will be in addition to the cars that are currently here with residents. So, you know, the safety, the congestion, as well as like the noise pollution, as well as just like environmental pollution there with the addition of those 200, at least 200 vehicles. And then also the road currently, I do not believe comfortably accommodate two-way traffic. In the instance of oncoming traffic, I find myself having to pull over to closer to the curb in order to accommodate that other vehicles to come through. So that's a concern of mine as well. The sidewalks are also quite small already. They accommodate the residents that currently live here. However, with the influx of, you know, upwards of 200 to possibly maybe even 400 people, there's just going to be a lot more people on the road, also probably a lot more dogs. That's a concern. And then also the impact of the construction on the community. I understand that the construction will take approximately 3 years. So in terms of noise pollution, dust, and just like overall safety over the next 3 years, that is a concern that I do have. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it. So really it's safety, just enhancing the community around the lot, not just within the lot itself, I think is a big concern of mine because this lot not only will definitely affect all the residents that live on the adjacent streets, including myself.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Chair, if I could ask you to state for the record that Ms. Kirkman's email was received.
Yes.
And the commissioners have received that, and that will, if you could just state that it's entered into the record, please.
Yes. I'm sorry. I think, what was her first name? Ms. Kirkman's first name, or just I call her Ms. Kirkman?
Kathleen Kirkman.
Kathleen Kirkman, yes. Did submit an email to the commission, I believe yesterday prior to when the comments needed to be received. And it was published and sent to all of the commissioners. Is that correct, Nancy?
That is correct. And I would add that it has been posted on as part of tonight's agenda so the public can see it. And it was also sent to the applicant team. So it has been made part of the public record.
Thank you, Nancy.
Very good. So there are a couple of people that have joined after I checked, There is someone by the name of Varney. Do you wish to address the commission this evening and be sworn in? No,
thank you.
excuse me?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I believe Terry Willis was just going to, did you wish to speak?
I don't need to speak tonight.
Okay, thank you. And then two others. Dylan Harrison.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And a Marilee Miller.
No, thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else that is on the meeting that wishes to speak that I did not call on? If you can raise your hand electronically, if you know how to do that.
I see Dan Kaufman down there. Raised his hand.
Yes, I have something to say.
Okay, I didn't see you. I apologize. Oh, because you're in the, yes. Somehow got into, all right. Please raise your right hand if you can go off mute. Do you swear under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I do.
Okay, you have 3 minutes, please.
You know, I was just looking, the building, I think it was 6, the furthest north, had 10 parking spaces close to it. Maybe there's a garage or 2 there, but right now with the parking that's come from Ironworks Village, the people that just have 2 spots and everything else is a fire zone, there's already a parking problem on Galapago, the trucks that having to turn. I don't believe 10 parking spots by one building is enough. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you very much. I have another Mr. Waters, Blake Waters. Let me bring you into the meeting. If you can turn your screen on, please, I will swear you in.
Is that working yet?
It is. Would you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you'll, oh my gosh, just
I do.
that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Planning and Zoning Commission? I am so sorry. It's been a
That's
long
all right. I do.
And would you please state your name and address?
My name is Blake Waters. I'm at 2888 South Galapago Court.
Thank you.
That address, I just wanted to kind of back up Dan there and say we are noticing in the Ironworks community, there's a number of us who had the issue mentioned before, I think, of garages not being to the size people expected. And so I think we're facing a lot of spillover. And so, yeah, parking has been one of our concerns there as the new folks come in, everyone fighting along the Bates curve into Galapago. Just something to keep first and foremost. It's interesting to hear from Diane the other perspective, I guess, of there's kind of 2 sides to the parking conversation. But I guess our thought was, yeah, on back to the ratio, just wondering whether that does satisfy folks and their visitors and you know, two residents to a bedroom in cases. Would just wonder about the reduction in the in that parking ratio. But yeah, like I said, we're already kind of facing that that challenge and anticipating that it's going to swell rather much at the north end of your property.
Thank you. Oops, and Ms. Kirkman now wishes to speak. Give me 1 second.
Hi, actually, this is Jennifer Bartlett.
And I did want to make a comment.
I'm sorry. Are you speaking for Kathleen Kirkman?
She's on my Zoom account.
I see. Okay, thank you. If I could just bring you into the meeting and then we can swear you in. If you could put your video on.
Okay.
Perfect. Would you
Hey.
raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that you will tell the truth in this proceeding before the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I do.
And please state your name and address.
Sure. Jennifer Bartlett at 2844 South Fox Street.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
So thank you. I wanted to just acknowledge the trail and some of the nice features in your development. I do appreciate what that'll bring to the community. My comment and concern is actually about the sidewalk. I know that we've seen the rendering, we've seen the site plan, and they're different. I think after living here for a few years and in Ironworks, where we do have detached sidewalks with trees, it makes a huge difference. And I feel like this development is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity for that part of the roadway. And it's really important to actually consider that sidewalk an amenity and not just an afterthought. It'll make a huge difference for everybody. The sidewalks in Englewood are typically pretty sad. And so I realize anything is going to be better than what we've got. However, considering including that buffer with trees or even just a buffer would be a huge upgrade. And just thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else, Nancy, that you see? Okay, now that we have heard from the public, is there, this is now the opportunity for the applicant or staff or even the commissioners to make any further comments? Okay, you see anything there, Nancy? My screen's not as large as yours.
There are two.
Oh, here we go. I see Noel.
Kate has her hand up.
Okay.
I apologize. I didn't think of this earlier and I'm totally digging up the dinosaur here. But with this proposal, then at one time there was the proposal for the Bates RTD station, potential station. So I didn't know if the applicant had any information on that, like historically, or how that has changed over time.
Sure, Kate, this is Bryant Winslow. I'm happy to answer that question. There was at one point an intergovernmental agreement between the city of Englewood and RTD to put a light rail station basically on our property along Bates that stretched back to the south 450 feet. I think the real short answer to your question is the last time that platform was discussed was probably circa 2012. And at that point, that platform was going to cost somewhere in excess of $23 million. The Winslow family certainly couldn't pay for that. RTD couldn't pay for it, and the city couldn't either. And so I believe that that plan has really just been scrapped due to the cost. A lot of the cost was associated with the fact that the heavy rail and the light rail are pretty close in that area. And the light rail also has a spur that goes into the maintenance facility north of the old General Iron site, or excuse me, the foundry, or I apologize again, I believe it's called the Ironworks now. And there was going to have to be a platform built over that track to get pedestrians from grade up and over that light rail spur and then back down to the platform. And RTD wanted to keep that platform open north of 220 days a year. So that was going to force construction work to take place on weekends and late at night into the early morning. It got to the point where it was too expensive, and you know, it was certainly while it would have been nice, I think maybe for the community and for our site, I think the costs were just too prohibitive. And you couple that with the fact that it's only a quarter mile north of the Inglewood City Center stop, and the train wouldn't even be able to get up to speed before it would be required to stop again. So it was going to really, you know, cause a problem in the scheduling and the timing of those train trips to and from Denver.
Thank you, Bryant.
You bet.
And then we have Noel.
Has there been any parking study performed as to the actual parking space usage in the developments to the north, which, you know, might be good data to use when looking at what ratio is required for this new development?
Yeah, Noel, thanks for the question. We didn't commission a study specifically to the usage up on Ironworks Village. We could certainly reach out to those the developers there and touch base with and see what they've done. I would be surprised if they've done anything kind of post-mortem, if you will, right, to see what's actually utilized, but we'll certainly reach out. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, staff, do you recall how large the garages are at Ironworks?
I don't recall anything off the top of my head for that.
Okay, just out of curiosity since it was brought up. Okay. Any further comments? Is there a final statement? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Diane, go ahead.
I jumped in. I would just state that in my experience, a 10 by 20 spot should sufficiently fit the majority of residential homeowners' vehicles. Is it going to fit, you know, their loader that's going to, you know, truck a bunch of stuff here and there? I don't know. It's not going to do an asphalt roller or something, but I think for the majority of residential applications, it should be more than sufficient.
Thank you. I guess now is the time to ask the applicant or staff if they have a final statement.
Yeah, I would just close by again saying thank you to everybody for the time. We appreciate the thoughtful comments, ideas, suggestions, all those things that we've talked about. So appreciate everybody's time. We can't say it enough. We're really excited about the project and appreciate everybody's thought and attention to detail as we work through things.
Well, I appreciate that, Brett, and I think from the activity and the questions from the commission that this is not only has the commission done very good work in taking a hard look at all of this, but it looks like it's a very well thought out project. And so we will, without hearing any other objections, is it time now for us to call for a motion to close the public hearing?
I would say yes.
I'm looking at the commissioners for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll motion to close.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, perfect. All right. Nancy, can you call the vote?
Sorry. Ms. Lepowski?
Yes.
Mr. Kenton?
Yes.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes.
Let me see, who am I missing? Sorry. Mr.
Palmer?
Haggerty?
Yes.
Kate?
Ms. Townley? It's hard when the screen's full.
I know.
And Acting Chair Austin.
Yes.
Very good.
All right, so now I believe we need a motion and a second on the case recommendation. Do I need to, what do I need to do here, Nancy? Do I need to restate the case number?
No, whoever makes the motion can do that if you'd like.
Right.
I'll go ahead and make the motion to recommend to City Council, I believe, the administration approval of minor subdivision plat and filing with the Reque County, dedication of the 10-foot public trail easements for future construction of Inglewood Rail Trail, and approval by City Council of a memorandum of understanding for future construction considerations. Approval of right-of-way vacation request for a portion of West Cornell Avenue, South Huron Street, and a 16-foot public alley, and removal of the existing monolithic rollover curb, gutter, and 3-foot sidewalk with replacement with a 6-inch vertical curb, gutter, 6-foot sidewalk in accordance with current city standards. Requirement includes matching grades from existing new back of walk to existing surfaces along the entirety of Galapagos Street, including across the properties located outside of the project that have frontage on Galapago.
Thank you. Very well done.
I'll second.
You have to go through it all again.
All right, do we need to call for a vote now, Nancy?
Usually there's discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Of course, discussion.
We haven't had a public hearing in a very long time.
And I'm botching my notes here.
I do have one clarification on that. So we are saying that there is the 6-foot curb and gutter in front of the entirety of Galapago Street, or is what we're saying. That's correct, right?
Correct, from Dartmouth to Bates. Yes.
Dartmouth to Bates, great.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Nancy, would you like to call the vote? Oops, I'm sorry. Kate's got her hand up.
Yeah, Daryl has his hand up.
And Diane too, everybody. Okay. Okay, Daryl?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few things that came up that we need to really discuss with this. Obviously it's been quite a while since we've had, a public hearing, but we have had some in the past, and some things have come up that we didn't anticipate in terms of some of the issues that have been brought up. I mean, sidewalks have been brought up by many people. I think we need to look further at that. I think we need to look at the lack of green space. I think we need to further look at traffic. I think we need to take advantage of that. We have a really good developer here that sounds like really wants to work with the city, and I think we need to make it work for the city and for him. But there are a lot of things we need to discuss here, and those are some of the issues. If I missed anything, please add to it. It's a little tricky to do our interactive discussion in this way, but those are some issues. I think the way that we usually handle this is, as we move it on to city council, assuming we were to approve, we might want to add a friendly amendment to look at some of these issues.
Okay. Further discussion or comments?
Do we get to just jump in at this point in this format?
You're good, Diane. Go ahead.
I just want to echo Daryl's concerns. I think I would strongly recommend looking at the sidewalk condition. I think we heard from a resident that echoes that concern. Possibilities for making more green space, and I think that, at least from my perspective, I see no issue with the vacation requests. certainly the entire project is contingent upon the approval of those. And it seems that the public trail easement is a very good in-kind piece offered by the developer.
Okay. Nancy, my screen doesn't have everybody on it, so I can't tell if other people are raising their hands.
No, you're good. It's Kate.
Thanks. I guess some of the things that would be great to hear from Diane or Daryl would be what kinds of amendments you may be looking for in terms of increasing green space or changes to the sidewalk. This is a really weird thing for me to say because I am normally all about reducing parking as much as possible, especially in such close proximity to the light rail station. I will say with the interesting shape of this site and the limited amount of places where you can access the site and be able to access like on-street parking, it's not within a grid where you can, you know, park in and out of the site easily. That gives me some concern in terms of trying to further reduce the parking requirement that they have. And I'm wondering too, I think it's great that they have the rail trail easement, and that's going to be a huge benefit for many people within the development as well as beyond the development. And I'm trying to think of what would be other additions to green space that would be usable space within the site. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that, how we could incorporate either some additions with green space or what your thoughts are.
Noel has his hand up.
Overall, I really like the, what you described as, putting the garages facing internally. I think that's a huge thing for quality of life of the neighbors around. The attention on light pollution, I also think is a really great thing. Having lived across from many a building that did not observe anything about light pollution, so I think that's a really huge benefit. I like the electric car charging spots. I would say run conduit to as in front of as many of the buildings as possible now. People, as to whether they will walk the extra 3 minutes to park an electric charging spot. I know it sounds kind of silly, but make it as easy as possible for people to charge their electric cars. And yeah, then the things that came up, that the public also brought up around sidewalks. I did notice in the packet there was a request about waiving the waiver for the sidewalk on Galapago. Sorry, I pronounce that one wrong every time. So just some clarity on that, because it sounds like this motion is saying that would have to be that would have to be changed. So just some understanding around that, and a parking study of that actual usage. I think that's more useful than what they're doing in Lone Tree or Lakewood or anywhere else. If we can look a few hundred feet away. And for reference, a 2024 F-150 is 6 foot 8 inches wide. Once you include the mirrors, it is 8 feet wide. So in a 10-foot garage, it might be a little bit squishy. Thank you.
Daryl?
Yeah, I think that, I really think, like I said, it's probably the way that we've addressed this sort of thing in the past is just, if we do think this is a development that should move forward, and I think, it definitely meets housing needs that we have, but I do have concerns because, like, I live down by the Oxford Apartments, which we approved I don't know how many years ago, and they have a huge parking issue there because people park on the street because I think they charge for all the spaces. So I was glad to hear that you only plan to charge for the garages and people will have space to park in the development, assuming there's enough spaces. And I think obviously we need to make sure that's the case. It's a very tricky parking balance. You know, a lot of us would like to see less parking, but then we don't want less parking and then people have 3 cars in their, you know, or even 2 cars and are parking on the streets and causing a problem. So I think, like I said, this is a good and thoughtful development that we want to move forward, but we really need to think about some of these other things with the sidewalks and the green space and parking issues that have been mentioned. So I don't know if anybody's good at putting together a friendly amendment or, you know, thinking about that, but maybe we could add that onto this, and that would be a way to move things forward, possibly.
Nancy, do you have some suggestions about that?
Wade has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you for letting me interrupt and jump in here. As we're going through this conversation right now, I'm going to encourage the commission members to try to be as specific as we can with what you want the recommendation to be. I'm going to, you know, caution everybody that a motion going forward to city council that says something about look at further traffic issues or parking issues is not going to be a good recommendation. I'm just trying to avoid sort of getting this project kicked back to Planning Commission at a future date like we've seen previously. So if everybody can think, you know, about what it is you would like to have looked at further. You know, we're talking about detached versus attached sidewalks. Do you want that to be looked at only along Galapago? Do you want it to be looked at internally? What other information specifically that's not already in a traffic study that the applicant has done are you looking for? Just so we have as much clarity for the applicant, but also us as we move forward with the recommendation to City Council. So thank you. Enough said. I'll stop talking now.
Thank you, Wade.
Wade, I just wanted to say, I think that's, you know, a very good point that, you know, and that's why I was saying that we should ask for specifics. But I do think that, you know, even just having this conversation is going to, you know, I know City Council listens to this, and I think, you know, just having this conversation will bring up the issue. But that's why I said if anybody has any specifics that we want to craft out specifically, I mean, one thing that I think of is, you know, specifically we could see if there's a way that the city can encourage the developer to do detached sidewalks. Have been mentioned by many people versus attached, and I know obviously there's a lot of challenges with that, the cost and the space, and just if there's a way that we can mutually work together between the city and the developer to make that work out in a way that, because it does make a difference, as was pointed out by the comment from the person that spoke that lives, I believe, in General Ironworks, about how much of a difference that kind of design with the sidewalk makes. So I think that would be a specific that we could add on, I think. So thanks.
I would say that as far as the sidewalks, minimally a separated sidewalk in the public realm, there's probably some opportunities for that internally, but I think from the city's perspective, it's more meaningful to do that in the public realm. I think that it would be nice for residents as well. And I think that the comments, at least from my perspective, with regards to the amount of parking and the amount of what is called open space versus what is green space, is just, you know, circulating between, say, building 6 and the clubhouse or something. I can see that, you know, the cow path will certainly be to walk along the parking lot all the way to the clubhouse. Certainly there would be a circuitous route that would take you there, but it wouldn't be very shady. And so I think it's about the heat island effect. It's about, you know, water permeability. Certainly there seems to be adequate, I'm not a storm water engineer, but there seems to be adequate measures for that. But I suppose my recommendation would be about the sidewalk having a minimally 5 foot wide, possibly 6 foot wide walk with a 5 foot wide minimum tree lawn in the public right of way. And then, as Noel suggested, reviewing close by projects for parking ratios.
Do I hear any proposed additional language to be added to the motion in front of us?
One
So if
item, go ahead.
I'm sorry, before we move on, Diane, is your friendly amendment to the motion a condition for separated sidewalks in the public realm? Or can you repeat exactly what your recommendation for the condition is?
Yes, I'm recommending separated sidewalks in the public realm.
Thank you. So before we move forward, Mr. Haggerty and Ms. Townley, are you in agreement with that friendly amendment?
I am in agreement with that.
Ms. Townley?
I feel really weird saying this. I think in the language we have, it is per our development code. And I would feel more comfortable staying with that instead of saying it has to be exactly this much of a detached sidewalk. We do have detached sidewalks that are in the development code with bicycle and pedestrian connectivity for different kinds of streets. So in my thought, it should already be covered because we have it in there. So whatever y'all think about that. I'm all for a detached sidewalk. I want that condition. Looking at the street, there doesn't seem to be a ton of space in the right of way, as well as if it's already going into where those private property owners are at. So I would also want to be careful that we're not creating too much constriction in what the city can do by saying something that would be either different than what we already have in the code. And I don't know if Wade or if you have any thoughts on that or other folks.
Yeah, Wade, can you pipe it in on that?
I'll just say that the right-of-way width in front of those outlying single-family residential houses is minimal. I would caution us getting into a condition where we are now asking for land from those actual property owners for, say, you know, anything more than a 5 or 6 foot sidewalk that fits within the actual existing right of way. We'll have to be careful if we ask or require a detached sidewalk that we might be looking at something like 10 feet. And that would be getting into purchasing property from those owners. It would be outside of the existing right of way. So, you know, that's one concern I would have for the success of actually getting a continuous sidewalk from Dartmouth to Bates, as if we had to all of a sudden be negotiating land purchases from 6 property owners. But I'm not disagreeing with, you know, the thoughts behind that. I don't know necessarily that the logistics would permit a continuous detached sidewalk along that entire length, just because of space constraints.
So Ms. Lepowski, do you wish to maintain the condition?
I mean, I think it's a good point, Wade. It would be certainly difficult to negotiate that. I would ask the other commissioners if they have other thoughts on that too, whether having two different conditions is better, to have a small portion of the block be different than the rest of it, or do we just maintain the attached sidewalk?
Well, I'm thinking that along Wade's line is that we really probably need to consider only the property before us and not the additional homeowners along Galapago. Is that right, Wade?
That would be my suggestion, yes. I don't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I don't exactly know the overall width of Galapago. I don't know if we can do some sort of road diet there where we can take up a little more actual roadway for enhanced sidewalks. That's something, I just don't know. I'd have to talk with the development team and our public works to see what would work there. But I would suggest that we not get into a situation where we're purchasing property from those single family residents.
And Daryl,
reasonable. Nancy, could you clarify for me? Could we suggest that it is looked into as part of this? I mean, I wouldn't want this to hold it up or anything like that. That's not my intent. My intent is more, can we investigate whether this is possible? Because I agree, Wade, I don't know what the road section is. I asked, it's hard to tell what the right of way is. So I guess I would leave that as a note to you or a question to you.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that's a very reasonable condition, is if we investigate it and come up with an answer, whether that's possible or not, and report that at City Council. I think that's fair.
So Dugan, I have a question before Daryl, I move to you. Dugan? So since Ms. Townley did not accept the friendly amendment, do we need to have a brand new motion to add the condition?
You have to vote on the friendly amendment first.
But Ms. Townley made the seconded the motion. She did not accept it. So do we just have a new motion with the condition?
Could we tweak the motion and maybe then it would be acceptable to Kate and then move forward with that?
Kate, do you have an amendment that might be friendly to all?
Well, actually, what I was thinking of is, the considerations that were mentioned is maybe we could just add a few words saying basically detached sidewalk where it's doable, kind of a thing. I don't know how we'd want to phrase that, but we could just add a few words and it would be a lot less of an imposition and would allow for certain places where a detached sidewalk just really wouldn't work.
Ms. Townley, do you have any thoughts?
I guess my thought would be is that if in our code right now that we have that you are supposed to have detached sidewalks, and it's 1665C 1 and 2. Detached separated sidewalks meeting city design and construction standards shall be installed along all local collector and arterial streets. And sidewalks shall be detached from the curb at least 6 feet to allow for a landscape planting strip between the right-of-way edge and the sidewalk. except for transitions at street intersections where sidewalks shall be attached. I read that as when this goes in, unless there's some crazy circumstance, that this should go in as a detached sidewalk. So if in the way we have the motion right now, it says that, you know, that you would remove the sidewalk and then replace it with a 6-inch curb and gutter and a 6-foot sidewalk in accordance with the city standards, that we would be getting a detached sidewalk if we're doing it to city standards.
Wade, is that correct?
I'd have to look at that section. I have no reason to doubt that it's not correct. But I would want to look at it a little further.
And maybe we could put something just in reference that in the motion as a sort of an expectation with that allowance for more investigation between now and the council meeting.
Well, and the rest of those sentences do include that they match grades from the new back of the walk to the existing surface. So I guess it's saying we need to blend into the sidewalk that's in front of those 5 houses. Is that correct, Wade?
Yes, you're correct.
So we're not actually committing the city to changing the sidewalk in front of those residences. We're just talking specifically to this project. I see Brian's hand up. Bryant, was your hand up?
I'm not sure. Dugan's going to have to speak in on this. I'm not sure if the applicants can speak at this point.
Ah, okay. You're right.
But that's a Dugan call.
And I do think, I think I may have misunderstood you, Michelle. The sidewalk would be required to be in front of the residence.
Oh.
I guess the question is the sidewalk should be detached per the code for any new development of more than 4 units should be detached per the section that Kate Townley was referring to, 16-6-5, detached sidewalks for anything that has 4 or more dwelling units. But right in front of the existing homes, I think that would be acceptable to be an attached sidewalk, which increases the 3-foot to a 6-foot at least, and makes it a more connected surface without having to go into their properties any further. But the way I had stated the original was to include that entire length of Galapagos, the entire stretch of Galapagos will have a 6-foot sidewalk. I believe in front of the new development, it should be separated per the code as it currently is. And then in the existing areas, it should be attached to reflect an improvement over what is there now.
So Dugan,
Agreed with you, Colin.
Sorry, Wade. Dugan, can the applicant speak during discussion?
No, the
I'm
hearing's
sorry.
the hearing over.
I'm sorry.
This is just deliberations.
And I guess
the hearing's over.
Okay, thank you.
One, is this the last chance that they will have? So they'll present this in front of council as well and be able to kind of justify any of these points that we're bringing up at this point as well. Is that correct, Wade?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So they have another chance to talk. It's just not in this specific hearing to be able to kind of talk about this.
I want to clarify. I want to clarify also, and I don't know, Eric, if you have any way to look at the plans or anything. I'm not sure there's enough room on the property in the current building layout if for an attached sidewalk, again, it's just something we would need to look into. So if we can formulate something that says further research, I like what Commissioner Townley is saying, follow the city's design standards, but with further research into these other aspects of what may be possible. Is that fair?
Kate has her hand up, actually.
I was just gonna ask Diane if where her thoughts were on where this was at. So that would answer Wade's question as well.
I'm fine with saying, let's please investigate the feasibility of detached sidewalks per city code. Does that seem reasonable to you?
Are you asking me, Diane?
No, I'm asking
Diane,
Kate.
or
I'm
Kate?
looking at her
Okay.
little rectangle and thinking she could hear.
Okay.
She nodded. Does that count? No.
That seems reasonable to me. Yes.
I think, I just wanted to say, go ahead.
No, Daryl, you go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just the fact that we're having this extensive discussion with that is going to, bring the point home, whether we add the amendment or not. But just the mention that I think you came up with would be quite sufficient, and in looking at the specific issue. So I think the question I would have is, do we want to look more at the issue that you brought up, which is, how much open space is really there, for green space, usable open space, or is it just, that whole thing? And then obviously the much more challenging issue that we mentioned of figuring out the parking and the traffic issues, which are significant and hard to predict, but we really, don't want to get into a situation where we're looking back at it and saying, if we had just looked at a little more, we could have avoided this situation that we end up with down the road. No pun intended.
I'd like to add maybe two more things to that would, I think, follow what Daryl was saying. I think that's approval of the traffic study because there are still outstanding comments on that. And so acceptance by the city of that study and those final results. And also the drainage and water quality report that would also be associated. I know there's a draft one, but acceptance and approval of those items, I think would that cover you, Daryl, or do you want to even see a little more than that?
Yeah, no, I think, like I said, just bringing it up and having discussion, and I know we've got good council people that'll look into this in more depth as well. And like I said, we have a good developer to work with that's obviously very invested in Inglewood, and that's a huge thing. So yeah, I would.
So I would recommend the amendment being to review the sidewalk standards per city standards or per the city development code, zoning regulations, and to include an approved traffic study and the comments being addressed, and as well as an improved drainage and water quality study as an amendment to my original motion.
Nancy, where are we as far as you need for a motion?
Mr. Haggerty made the original motion. He has just suggested some amendments. And so now I'm looking to Ms. Townley to see if she accepts those amendments he made.
I'm just being difficult tonight. Colin, can you just elaborate a little bit more on what you're looking for in terms of an update or some sort of change with the water quality study?
It wasn't included in here, and so I just want to make sure that it is included and approved, and that's really my only condition.
Okay, that's reasonable. And what was the other one again?
There were outstanding comments from city traffic on the traffic study that need to be addressed and to the satisfaction of the city, I think, before we can say that that portion is acceptable.
That seems reasonable too.
So I have the original motion by Mr. Haggerty and those 3 conditions.
Could you repeat those 3 conditions just to make sure all the commissioners are clear before we vote?
Sure, if Mr. Haggerty wants to repeat those 3 conditions. 'Cause I was not able to write them all down correctly.
Sure.
Isn't this recorded?
It is recorded, so for when I go back and do your motions for minutes and your findings, I'll have them verbatim.
Okay. I will try to repeat it to the best of my ability. That the amendment to the original motion is to review sidewalks to ensure conformance per city zoning regulations, Title 16 zoning regulations. To have all comments on the traffic study be addressed to the city satisfaction, and that the final drainage and water quality report is approved and accepted by the city.
Okay, are all the commissioners clear on
May
what
I
we're
ask a
voting on?
question? I apologize.
Yes, please.
Could I ask for clarification on one point, please?
Of course.
You mentioned right now we have a preliminary drainage study approved. And you just mentioned a final drainage study.
I would assume that there would have to be a final drainage study, Wade, and if I overstepped on that, I can adjust that context.
There will be a final drainage study required. Typically, we receive those at building permit review and get finalization and approval for the final at building permit stage.
Will this be the last time that we get to look at this development?
It will be.
Okay.
Unless city council sends it back to us.
Right.
Because there are comments in there that you guys have said, you being the city, that you'll want to address some of those final landscaping items. I think those are all questions that, that we're interested in. I don't know that we have the, the right to decide those, but we want to make sure that they are following, what we're all here to be doing, which is enforcing our zoning criteria fairly. So sure, I guess I will amend that to acceptance of the preliminary drainage report has already happened. Is that what you're saying, Wade?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I will remove that condition then, since that is accepted. I thought you had said that that was submitted. It wasn't accepted, or it hadn't been approved yet. So I apologize for that. I will adjust the amendment to say review of the sidewalks to meet the criteria of Title 16 zoning regulations criteria, and then to have an accepted traffic study that addresses all the city's comments.
I just had a point of clarification within that. When you're saying review of the sidewalks, so you're just speaking to, is it number 4, the Galapago or Galapago sidewalk, or are you saying all sidewalks?
Galapagos are islands, Galapagos a street.
Is that like Louisville and Louisville? Like, it just depends on, okay. I would say that the sidewalks need to either meet the standards of our title, or there needs to be a variance requested for that.
The plot thickens. Nancy, how are you with our motion now?
We have the original motion and 2 conditions. The traffic study, addressing the comments about the traffic study and the detached sidewalks.
Does that work for you, Colin and Kate and Diane and Daryl?
Kate has her hand up. Kate, did you wish to speak again?
I was just gonna say, to be clear, I think that within the city code or within our development code, the detached sidewalks would be for the street, so for the public right-of-way area. So I think we would either have to add something, if you're looking to add something around the interior, sidewalks, I think that would be a different point. So I just wanted to be clear on that.
I guess my thought would be that it would be to the whatever that city requirement is, and so I don't know that I necessarily have to. I'm just thinking, to make it simpler. I'm not trying to specify inside or outside, so whatever the city code would be, I think hopefully that helps clarify it. I guess I didn't mean to cause any trouble on that one. So yeah.
Wade?
We had also talked about clarification of open space. Is that still something you all want to have clarified?
Wade, that is something that you all review, right? And there's calculations that are included and that's approved and accepted by you.
Correct.
And I would assume along the same lines of the final landscaping type of items. I had questions of whether that was included in that package to be reviewed. If you're saying that you've reviewed it and seconded it, I'm personally okay with that. If other people had thoughts on that, I'm okay to listen to.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and I would say that as long as the city, which I know they have reviewed the calculations for the open space, and we are calculating open space as we have in on any other project that came before us, that's essentially what we're trying to get. Is that correct?
That's correct. From my standpoint.
So I think we have a motion. And Nancy, do you want to repeat it, or do we want to just go ahead and move for a second, or did we? No. Yep.
We already have a second. It was moved by Mr. Haggerty.
Okay.
Seconded by Ms. Townley.
Okay.
And if Mr. Haggerty would like to reread the motion with those two conditions, that would be fabulous.
Yes, I do. Give me 10 seconds here. Okay. So I am moving to recommend case Z0N2020-001 that the development is approved with the following conditions: administrative approval of the minor subdivision plat and filing with Arapahoe County, dedication of a 10-foot public trail easement for future construction of the Inglewood Rail Trail, and approval by City Council of a memorandum of understanding for future construction, approval of right-of-way vacation request for a portion of West Cornell Avenue, South Huron Street, in a 16-foot public alley, removal. I'm going to modify this to review of the proposed sidewalk conditions, that they meet the standards of the city's Title 16 zoning regulations, which would consist of removal of the existing sidewalk and replacement with a 6-foot sidewalk, either attached or detached, depending on the location, along Galapago. And then the addition of responses and acceptance of the traffic study by the city, and that all the comments to the traffic study have been addressed to the satisfaction of the city. I think that's it.
Any further discussion by the commissioners or staff?
I don't see any hands, Chair Austin.
Therefore, Nancy, can you call the vote, please?
I will. Ms. Townley.
Do we need a second on that, or is that
No, you were just restating the
restating?
motion.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Townley?
I'll vote yes. I think that this proposal will help increase our variety and types of housing within the city. And I think the density is appropriate for the location, with it being close to existing light rail stations. That the open space requirement, which is something I'm always a big stickler on, I think is definitely being met. And I appreciate the dedication or the easement for the rail trail project. And I think that will be a benefit for many people in the community. The right-of-way vacations make sense for this project. And I think the parking is appropriate. Given the distance to the light rail station, I think the small amount of parking reduction makes sense. So, yes.
Mr. Kinton?
I will vote yes also, because housing is definitely the #1 need in Inglewood. And I think this is, will provide some necessary housing. I also agree for the reasons that Kate so eloquently stated, and also, think it's important to take advantage of the fact that this is a developer that is invested in Inglewood and wants to work for the betterment of the city. And for that reason, with the considerations that we added to it, I would definitely approve it, and hopefully the rail trail will be connected sooner rather than later, as that is a very important piece of this project that will make it work so much better. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Haggerty?
Yes.
Ms. Lepowski?
Yes.
Mr. Atkins?
I vote yes. I feel the density is appropriate for the proximity to the light rail and to the Santa Fe entrance right there, and happy to see that this is how density is being added to Englewood.
Mr. Adams?
Yes, I also think the density is appropriate for the area. It seems to be a well thought out design of the property there, and I think they have good intention on keeping it as a addition to Inglewood, and not something that Inglewood's going to regret. So I believe it's a good move.
And Chair Austin?
I vote yes as well, for the reasons that have been outlined by the previously by the commissioners. I think that it is, as Kate Townley or Commissioner Townley pointed out, it is a very unusual design, unusual site design, and that what has been put before us does accomplish what's needed. I also would like to comment that those people who are on the west side are going to have some fabulous views of the mountains, because that property is raised up over Santa Fe and that. And if they're train lovers, it's going to be especially attractive to them. So I vote yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
All right. Thank you all. Okay, the next item on our agenda is City Center redevelopment rezoning, and I'd like to check in with Nancy and staff and what we would like to do. Do we want to postpone this discussion, or do we want to move forward tonight?
That is not my call.
Hello, commissioners. I think this is a pretty late hour, and I think that we should call it a night, and we would take this subject up at their very next meeting.
Thank you for permission to move forward on that, John. I appreciate it very much. I'm assuming the rest of the commissioners agree?
Absolutely.
I would support.
All right. Is there anything else in staff's choice?
Nothing from me.
I have nothing.
Attorney's choice. Is Dugan still here? Oh yeah, Dugan's still here.
Nothing to add this evening.
All right. Commissioner's choice. I'll go around. Diane?
I have nothing to add other than I'm excited to see this project move forward. I'm glad to have gotten a chance to look at it.
Okay, Carl?
This project may put a little bit of pressure on the Dartmouth Bridge, getting that built a little sooner than later. But currently, the Oxford Bridge is the priority, and that's going to take a while. So hopefully, we can get the Dartmouth Bridge built, and that'll be a big addition for this project. That's all.
Kate?
I don't have anything tonight. Thanks.
Okay, Noel?
Nothing further, thank you.
All right. Colin?
I do have a request for a point of information, not for tonight, but maybe for the next meeting. Why is part of Centennial always considered Inglewood? There
It's because
seems,
it's the Postal Service.
is that all Postal Service? Because it's, okay. I don't know how many times I have to argue that that part of the tech center is not actually Inglewood and bring up maps to show that it's not Inglewood and still get argued with the fact that it's called out as Inglewood. So if that's actually the reason, thank you. That's all I need to know. So thank you.
Yeah, a lot of Centennial doesn't have their own post offices, so they're all called Inglewood. So take it up with them. Does Daryl drop off? I don't see him here. Oh, there you are, Daryl. Daryl?
Daryl, you're muted.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, just it's a very long conversation another night about why that Inglewood is called the area, because it used to be, it predates Centennial's existence. Anyway, but that's a long conversation. But nevertheless, I did want to mention that we had a hearing a few weeks back ago now about a street vacation that actually went through the second reading of City Council, and we could talk about that at our next meeting. But I did want to mention that City Council did actually ultimately went through second reading last night and approved that the vacation of that street. So I did want to just mention that, and of course it's all in living color. Everything's on YouTube, these days, but it's readily available. But I did want to make sure that was of note. I'm sure Wade is well aware. But that's it from me. I know it's late. We're not going to get much sympathy from City Council because this would be a super short meeting for them. But nevertheless, it's late, and I don't have anything else to add tonight. Thanks.
Well, and if any of the commissioners would like to choose to become a City Council member, they have that ability to do so in their future to stay later if they want. So we'll thank you. But thank you for the update, Daryl. Is there anything further? Therefore, I will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all so very much. Good work.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Right.